is called what they call history.
Good evening, everybody.
Our street.
It's usually our tradition when we come amongst the community. We ask permission from the elders to speak. I'm 41, so do I have permission to speak from the elders?
That goes on forever.
All right. Well, by trade, as Ms. Tasha said, I teach actually taught her little daughter Naomi. I actually worked for Dr. Edwards.
That's what's up, man.
That's what's up. Some things that we see our parents do, or the ones that are older than us do, we need to do. As you see, one of the hardest things to do here in town is to have a business in education. Dr. Edwards has been around for 22 years now. 21 years. 21 years, right? And one thing I can tell you about her is she makes sure that her teachers work their butts off to be prepared to serve our children. So another thing that I want to speak on is, you see Dr. was here, you see Ms. Lena here, and I can vouch for my principal. They're always amongst the community. So you have that old school feel of the teachers, the administration knowing the community. So if I were you, I would make sure that my children attend their schools. I teach at Walton Academy, which is on Florida. I want to say it's black owned. Everything I pretty much do is black. One of the things I tried my best to understand was what the topic was. So if you want to pull out a pencil and a piece of paper, you can, because by trade and profession, I'm a teacher, so I'm going to teach a little bit. I'm just not going to randomly, throw some facts. I'm going to give you some sources that you can look into if you choose to. I don't see y'all taking out pencils and pieces of paper. All right, y'all record. Okay. One of the things that I don't use anyway. Marcus Garvey said don't use it. So therefore I don't use it. He said it in 1920 at the UNIA First National Conference. Don't use it, I'm not going to use it. I don't understand how you can de-inwardify the African-American male, because they both exist on the same spectrum. They're both developments of global white terror domination. They're both residual effects of the horror we've been through. And we've been enslaved for more than 400 years. Our enslavement began in 1441 by the Portuguese. I'm not going to give them 179 years of free enslavement of our ancestors. I'm connected to those Africans, so therefore I got to make sure that I honor those Africans as well. But I'm not going to let the Arabs off the hook either, because they were engaged in our enslavement, which made the situation right for the Europeans to come in. Again, this is what I want you to do. Look at Chancellor Williams' Destruction of Black Civilization. This is a scholar that you got to look into, because he lost his sight going to get this information on the ground to bring back to us. But let's get back to the topic at hand. The N-word, or the personality of the N-word, is the overt expression of that terror that terrorizes us personally. The so-called African American is someone who is internalized and tries to make the terror part of who they are on a regular basis. But neither one of those entities or those personalities build for us. You can't name an N-word who came into the African community and built for us. You can't name an African American that did that. Africans do that. So what am I talking about? We have to go back and reclaim our culture. When you go back and you look for African culture, you can't go back in time and stop, in West Africa, and stop in Mali, or stop in Ghana, or stop in Songhai. You have to go past that. You have to go back. You have to complete the migrations that, again, Dr. Chancellor Williams talks about. Another book you want to look into is 2000 Seasons by Ikwe Armah, who does a very good job of explaining how we got from point A to point B. Okay? So you have to go back beyond those things to see how we got to where we are. Two of the things that Ikwe Armah talks about is we moved away from our culture because we can't exist. Culture is like the water that a fish lives in. If you take a saltwater fish and drop him in fresh water, he won't function well. So that's the same thing that happens with us as African people. We try to put on other people's tattered clothes and it doesn't fit. That's just what it is. One of the things that express, again, that you can see this in, look at France Fanon. And what makes me mad? It makes me mad when you have, African so-called psychologists. And they can tell you everything in the world about Sigmund Freud, we can't tell you anything about France Fanon. You have our children walking around with Che Guevara shirt on, because they'll say, well, oh, Che was a doctor, because that's how y'all sound when y'all say this. Oh, Che Guevara was a doctor. His practice the Joy Revolution was sold in France Fanon, and he did it before Che Guevara. So we should become acquainted with these African people. Again, look at his book, Black Skin, White Mask, which talks about how we practice self-negation on the spectrum, and we try to find peace within that. We won't. We can't say that there is another people on planet Earth more technologically advanced than us, because it ain't and other people ever created a pyramid other than us. Not one. Not one. And we did it on shifting sand. There's not one person. They tried it, and it didn't work. There's not one other people who has created the Sphinx or Haru Hurmakat. There's not one of the people who's done these things. So therefore, when you telling me that our children can't do this and so, I'm gonna look at you like you're crazy. Doc's gonna look at you like you're crazy. Miss Rena gonna look at you like you're crazy. Because we come from a legacy of educational excellence that through our degradation of trying to wear other people's intellectual clothing, we have missed the point. Another book that you might want to look into is Baba Jacob Carruthers' Intellectual Warfare. So you can actually see who started the foolishness, who basically started to create the literature to say that we were less than or we couldn't read and all these crazy things. Y'all, and I say y'all because I did, because I went and got it. I'm gonna tell you, y'all bought into the foolishness that we couldn't read and write. But that don't make sense, because when Alexander went into Ephesus or the Temple of Karnak, they say he burned books. So if he burned books, that means we were doing what? Writing. That means we were reading. You had 3 civilizations that was going on. The first university built in Europe, in Italy. I think it was in 1020, 1030. I'm close. Were built by Africans. The first university built in Europe, in the Iberian Peninsula, is the University of Salamanca. That was built by us. When we went in 7-11 with dirt rocks and defeated, we taught them how to bathe. This is the intellectual property that is ours. It's something called genetic memory that we pass on to our children. We experience it in deja vu. You won't find this book because it's about like $2,000 now. But Carol Barnes was a man. But he wrote a book called Melanin, the key element of survival. This is a book that you want to look into because, again, it shows that when it comes to who we are and what we've accomplished, we got to get back to that. But you're not going to do it trying to swim through other people's culture. You will get affected. And you will wonder why, like Mr. Hill said, if our culture was intact, he wouldn't have to try to sell you on building your own business. Because we would not rely on other people to feed our children. We would, that is the inward psychology. We wouldn't say, oh, just go to college because college is a means to an end. That's the African American psychology. We create billions, if not trillions of dollars for other people to feed their families. But like Brother Bill has said, our children starve. We don't commit crime. Why babies don't commit crime just because they commit crime because they have to eat. We don't eat, we don't live. So we usually commit crimes to those who are closest to us. So that's how we fall into that old trick bag about black on black crime. Well, again, check out Dr. Amos Wilson's black on black crime. And you'll see that usually the black on black criminal is in service to global white third domination. I don't use the term racism, white supremacy, and imperialism because half y'all can't tell me what it means to be imperial. But you know what it means to be imperial. And we know no matter where they live on the planet, the Asian, the Arab, other Europe, no matter where they live on the planet, they brought terror. So we have to get back to ourselves. We have to understand that there is no way out of this individually. We got in this together, so we got to get out together.
Word.
So we have to practice on unity. See, don't be misled about things that you think. Heroes fight all the time. The British and the Irish fighting now. But they are collective on one point. And that is the degradation of me, you, and our babies. before I go into my list, I hope everybody understands what Brother Hill is saying. He's saying that basically at the base fundamental idea of economics, it's relationships. If the relationships aren't in place, then you won't be successful. Relationships come through culture. Just like Brother Shabazz said. And this, you gotta understand something. Okay, everything you read, you just listen, just a little bit. He said that the institutions of our enslavement were different in South America, the Caribbean islands, and here, and I shouldn't say Caribbean islands, excuse me, the islands here in America. They were totally different. But in the Willie Lynch letter, it says that Willie Lynch came from the Caribbean islands, but that don't make sense. I'm sorry to hurt your feelings, but sometimes we get a lot of misinformation within the community. Because they had cultural continuity still in place, that's why our insurrections and our rebellions and our fights for freedom were more successful. Nobody fought harder than Jamaicans, but they had a lot of traitors. And that's why the Haitians were successful. If we want to celebrate an independence, everybody should be celebrating 1801. Everybody. Everybody. So some books that we can look into an author. Her name is Angela Freeman. She has Sankofa Superheroes, Volume 1 and Volume 2. She has the Eliza's Doll series, which is, in my opinion, is based upon the Kenneth Clark doll test, but from a different perspective. I used to read it every day to my students. Naomi, the little girl up here, she was in my class. She read that book every day. But it was to instill that self-pride, but also when we started her business, because that's one of the things we did in our classroom. We wanted to end, you know how we all went to school, we always say this. Oh, we went to school, but you never taught me anything that I could use. Well, that's one of the things we did. COVID kind of messed us up because we were supposed to do a whole bazaar and go everything. We're going to have some community garden. We're gonna do things with our children at Walton Academy to implement in them skills at the base level so that they can grow and be integral parts of our community. Alphabet Kids is a book. The Old African is a great book that you can look into. Encounter. Encounter is a great book. Now, the Encounter is basically about when the Spaniards came into Santo Domingo, which is Haiti at the time, in the Bahamas. But it gives a perspective of that first encounter from the so-called Native American. Other books that you might listen, go to EckermanHouse.com. There's a scholar in Atlanta. He used to teach at Morehouse University.
Can you spell that? We got to spell.
No problem. AKOBEN.com. He taught at Morehouse University. I don't know if you remember, it was a few years back, maybe about 10, 15 years ago, with the situation when the guy came in the shower. And his roommate came in the shower on him and was looking around. So he took a bath and they said, whack him upside the head. They tried to charge him hate crime. One of the professors that was there, he and his wife, I think it was about 2 years ago, he and his wife stood up for the kid that basically got in trouble. It's in his book, Men to Side. And they ended up leaving and they started a homeschool out of their home called Eckerman Academy in Atlanta. They have a national, well not national, I guess regional celebration called Kebuka. Kebuka means remembrance. And it's remembering the middle passage through the eyes of my ancestors. It's my family and I would go every year. And what it does is it develops that empathy that we don't have. You know how like the Jews, the white so-called Jews will always say, never again, or never forget. But we don't have those type of monuments. But what he tries to do is build those in us so that at the end of the day, we are our ancestors. If you take one person out of your lineage, then you don't exist. So if you can walk around and say that you aren't your ancestors, then who children are you? You must be other people. It goes back to culture. I always say this. There were 2 organizations that were able to bring African people back to 90-degree perpendicular. It was Elijah Muhammad. I'm no Muslim. But you cannot deny that he was probably one of the greatest psychologists in the 20th century. And the Honorable Marcus Garvey. But they taught African. You have to be okay with being, I gotta take off my face, you gotta be okay with being African. You know, you gotta be okay with being African because that's who you are. But who is greater than you? I don't know too many other people on the planet doing like you do. Another piece of literature that you might, everything Ayikwere, he's still alive today. I think Ayikwere was like 76 years old in Senegal, great mind, great body. I know I've been African 5 times. And He has this one book called 2,000 Seasons. I'm telling you, man, 2,000 Seasons will change your mind about how you see yourself, because what he does is he doesn't hold punches. He identifies everybody that helped put us in this situation, including us. He has a book called Healing. He has fragments. A lot of times, what happens is we like to say that we're this group or we're that group. And what happens is that group that we want to be a part of is not even 100th of our body. We are one people, culture, continuity. People can say that, race doesn't exist biologically. I say that's a lie, because our bones are more dense. We have melanin in places that people don't have melanin. Our lungs are longer. There's a whole different thing between our anatomy and physiology and other people that they don't have. But guess what? We can take it off the table for their argument, right? And if you look at Sheikh and Diaz, the cultural continuity, of the cultural unity, of Black Africa, he explains that, listen, in the Southern Cradle, that's where we're from, right? No matter where you find us, you find similarities. They try to look at those ethnic differences that range in the thousands, maybe in the tens of thousands, and focus on those things that split us up. But if we don't get out of that trick bag and get it together that we're one people, one culture can equal race, our relationships will improve, and then we can have the economics. Elijah, with that little weird religion, he got it together on the African tip. When I like Old Testament Malcolm. New Testament Malcolm got kind of weird to me because he started saying things that was contradictory. His words, he started saying he's going to take the Euros to complain about the misbehavior of us in Europe, meaning that he was going to take the U.S. to UN. But UN started in San Francisco, so how you going? That ain't make sense. But if you look at Old Testament Malcolm, when he was teaching on that, he was teaching about Patrice Lumumba and these things. There was a distinct African philosophy and literature being taught to those people who were, everybody knows, when the nation was resurrected us, they took the real downtrodden, the marches out there, the lumping proletariat, those people that don't have nothing to lose, everybody strung out on drugs, going by the jail, prostituting. Elijah was able to clean those people up. Sometimes we get caught in other things. Not understanding, when he said eat one meal a day, people were able to save money. You were able to have the business. So now you got money to invest in the business. When you try to eat 5 times a day, you want to have Hulu, Netflix. You don't have the resource to invest in yourself, which will in turn feed your children. So we got the relationship. We get the relationship together by intuning or connecting into the culture. Culture is the key. Dr. Amos Wilson, a lot of times I know I'm kind of running a little bit, but I know one of the things I hate is when you say stuff like, it ain't no blueprint on how to do this and that. Y'all lying. First of all, it's the culture, right? The culture is the blueprint because we've done it for eons and it's been tried and true. We bring them forward, so that's the blueprint. But Dr. Amos Wilson has read his blueprint for Black Power. Just imagine if you looked at Brother Hill and you read that and the falsification of African content, because Blueprint is a marvelous book. It's 880 some odd pages. Blueprint is like 130. You can knock that out in the night. So, anything Dr. Amos Wilson has written, if you're going to have a baby, you got a little baby, read the Awakening of African Genius. Read the Development Psychology of the Black Child. See how our children are born ahead of every other child on this planet, and that's why they're science. That's why they're science. The things that our children are able to do, when they come up out of the room, sit up, recognize themselves, place things where it's supposed to be.
That's what's up.
The socialization that our children go through later on in life is what happens. Read to your babies. Read to your babies. Read to your babies. But if you want to build an African library for yourself, everything Bible Lima Baruti has written, go to this website, order it. I.E. Armada. Order it. Read it. 2,000 Seasons. You're probably not going to see it. You're probably not going to find it because it's out of print. But as soon as it comes back in the print, grab it. Everything Dr. Amos Wilson. Listen, this is how you gauge. So a lot of times we get confused on who we should rock with and who we shouldn't, as far as ancestors, right? Because there's a lot of people like James Ball. We like to say, James Ball when he's down. Listen, James Ball was set down with his homosexual European lover and said, hey, turn that turnip into a homosexual. In the novel that he wrote, how can you rock with somebody like that? But his homosexual lover was named William Sykes. I tell you no lies. You can look it up. At the end of the day, they took Dr. Amos Wilson away from us. So he must have been doing something right. So at the end of the day, if you're serious about being serious, because that's what happens a lot of times, like Bob Kelly Campbell. You know, we are at a point where we're serious about being very unserious. But we're serious. And what we have to do is we have to take the time to learn ourselves. We can't walk out that door, because I'm giving you tools. You cannot walk out that door and keep doing the same thing.
Real talk.
Because we keep engaging ourselves and others. Think about this right here. I'm going to leave on this note. In the next 10 years, China will be the sole economic power for the first time America has had a rival, what, in 100 years? Where does that leave us? Where does that leave us? If China calls, says America, that debt you owe us, because they invested in America. That's $6 trillion debt. If China asks for that, that's a declaration of war. We're the only politically constructed people on the earth. If they go and say, we're rid of the 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendment, you go back in the challenge. And just because you got a gun, the gun show tomorrow, make sure y'all be there getting your gun.
For real talk.
At the end of the day, how are you going to be successful fending them off if they decide to put us back in challenge? These are real things that we have to consider. Because there's nothing that the divine came down in 1865 and said, never again. People secure their future. People secure their existence. And there's nothing that says that we won't go to the others and we don't get ourselves together.
Thank you, Mr. James.